Imagine you're chilling on your bed, covered in your Gunnar tissue, scrolling through Instagram, and you see it. Gumball is getting a new season. We finally have new content to watch after we got cucked by the cliffhanger that Season 6 ended off on. Only it's Season 1, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball. Yeah, but outside of the first season having a few references about how it's been 7 years, it's basically the same show, right? Wrong. This show is straight dog water compared to the original. Trash! Now, some simps for the show may be wondering how. Well, then actually watch the video all the way through and you'll come to understand the modern reality of Gumball. Now, the first problem we'll be tackling with this show is its theming. Now, I can already see some of your eyes glaze over. I understand. I too once suffered through the existence of the classroom. Actually, I'm not going to bother with writing about my own experience. Y'all get the point. You either care about this show or you don't. It sucks. I'm going to go ahead and explain it now, so if you want to see me put my money where my mouth is, then shut up and watch the video. The main problem with the theming of the show is its non-commitment and almost contradictory messaging. This is particularly seen with its political commentary. While Gumball has already had plenty of political jokes in the past, like the glass ceiling joke, this season they take out any subtlety and tact, leading to jokes being far worse. The show also just sets up obvious strawmen to depict people they don't like, which even that is underpinned by the aforementioned non-committal and often contradictory messaging problems that the show has. One example is, rich people are bad, but the poor are just as bad? Take a look at episode 17, the Robinson episode. Richard is the poor allegory here, and it's portrayed him as him stealing because he's poor, but they add the line where you're gonna get a job, instantly framing him as the bad one here, and instead portrays poor people as lazy because they don't want to help their kids or get a job. Another example is the episode where Carrie takes over the body of Gumball so that she can go out on dates with Darwin. Now, compromise and meeting in the middle is important in a relationship, but Carrie can't meet in the middle with a body for Darwin. It is kind of funny and messed up and kind of ruins the themings that Carrie would rather step sus than use another temporary body. Even just simple stuff like explicitly explained lessons have to have some subversion that just totally nullifies the lesson, like nearly every single intergenerational trauma episode having a bit where the trauma is justified, i.e. Richard doing shit after practicing, and with the help of Alexandria the cheerleader, or even in season 2 episode 5 the whole theme changed from the parents making the event about themselves instead of their daughters feeling unloved since they've been hogging all the attention due to rejecting their love due to intergenerational trauma. The best example of this is episode 18. Episode 18 is actually a fairly above average episode for this show in terms of comedy, one joke making me exhale strongly, but this episode is also the epitome of non-commitment. A lot of interesting ideas and an actually compelling one at that is presented, as this episode is centered around the Watersons getting a new family photo to replace the old one for at least the remainder of how many seasons this new show lasts. And all that's introduced, Frankie's attempt at redemption, Nicole's mom's new boyfriend out of nowhere, and even the easy layup of getting a family photo via mugshot, all just forgotten about by the end. Frankie, Richard's biological dad, escapes, which, to be fair, is kind of a running gag at this point, and was funny. But we never see Granny JoJo's new boyfriend again, and the photo is just gotten as they're being taken in, and it's not a mugshot, which makes it significantly worse. Really, it all comes together with the episode just not even keeping the picture or keeping anything really, as it just trudges forward. So episodes either do a bad job of conveying the theme throughout the episode, or after they ham-fist it in your face, then decide to subvert it by going against the theme. And now you will suffer and hear the theming that is put on display in these episodes. Episode 5, twerking in front of kids, base, just straight up. The guy who says it isn't is literally murdered at the end, thus supporting it. In the show, Darwin explicitly calls what Gumball is doing as romantic. Their secret bad, but actually not. Day by day, episode by episode, I could feel my sanity slipping, inhaling more and more copium, now no more than a ghost in bed. I kept waiting for a well-placed punchline to validate my desperate, misplaced loyalty as I watched Gumball in the hopes of it getting better. Time started passing by, faster and faster, a soul stuck in purgatory. It felt like I was scrolling through Instagram watching reels of gay Chris Paul, but without the cinematic, climactic pleasure of every highlight. If you don't get it, you don't know ball. But anyways, this is due to the onslaught of constant jokes in the show, with some episodes being especially bad in this regard, leading to these quite frankly shitty jokes causing just a constant stream of dopamine hitting your brain, but you're not actually engaged in what you're watching. Thus, time seems to warp outside the bounds of reality, kind of like life post-pandemic. Now, to be fair, there are times when the episodes aren't like that, but then we end up in the opposite direction where we'll just spend too much time on one joke where the joke is just how long this joke is going on for, and then they'll point out that fact, which is another problem the show has, where they refuse to play a joke straight and will constantly go, the joke is that this is going on for too long, which may also be a symptom of the earlier problem I mentioned regarding the show's lack of subtlety when it came to its theming. This lack of subtlety becomes a rot, impacting the rest of the show, even its humor. Yet another problem is the show's attempt at being modern and relevant, with Gumball saying things like slay, or stating that he's a baddie, or him doing the floss, or the skibbity toilet reference. And these are just things I'm thinking off the top of my head. In the old show, even the most in-your-face references, like the screaming goat joke, was usually just an additional layer to an already funny joke. It isn't the main focus of the scene for too long. When it is in the scene, it's usually in the background or comes back in an interesting way. My point is, they're doing something with it so that it organically fits in with the rest of the show. What makes this even worse is the fact that many of these episodes are repeats of prior episodes, which isn't necessarily bad on its own, as you can do different things with the same premise, but when so many of these episodes have the aforementioned flaws, it makes it hard to look past the fact that I could just be watching the original version of these episodes anyways. Which makes it even more obvious when they also act strangely out of character. One example is the Mr. Robinson episode, where Mr. Robinson is just completely open and genuine about how much he cares about his son and how his drive to obtain wealth came from him wanting to do it for his son. In his previous appearances, he always shied away from showing empathy and care towards others, especially towards his son, as he usually avoids talking about him, and when he does, he just talks about how his son is a failure. Yet here the complete opposite is shown. It's also weird how Rocky is mad at his dad for doing unethical things for money, but is suddenly fine with it when Mr. Robinson decides to invite him to his pool, something he paid for with the money he made doing unethical things. But you could cut him some slack as he got cooked alive. Editor overly critical here, completely forgot to add, it's also really weird the lack of puppet animations that they did for Mr. Robinson, which really amplifies how strange Mr. Robinson acts in this episode. Also weird how rich they portray Mr. Robinson in this episode, as before, while he was shown as well off, here the episode feels the need to hype up how rich he is, when the most we got from prior seasons was, oh, he had a really nice car. This isn't even the only case of making characters that were perceived as well off, as these now suddenly fabulously wealthy people. As another example is Tobias' family, as they suddenly have a mega mansion. This is what their house is usually portrayed as, and while you could argue that it isn't exactly the same every time, as you could with most things in the original show, at its core you still get the same idea as to the lifestyle these characters live. Now look at their new place. Ah yes, just a bit of renovating, restructuring, made their front lawn a tad bit longer and the house a bit wider. Yet another example of characters acting weirdly is Penny's family, as they're strongly against coming out of the shell, yet in the final episode of the season 1, the whole family is showing what they look like, and Penny's father is unusually happy about showing Gumball. Yet in prior appearances, he's clearly been against it. Now, understand, some of you may bring up the season 6 episode from the original Amazing World of Gumball, the transformation episode, where they learn to respect each other's different life choices. But that's just it. This is effectively them agreeing to disagree. So for Mr. Fitzgerald to suddenly go from, I agree with your choice, but I understand you are your own person and I won't necessarily agree with everything you decide, but I love you anyways, to, hey, me and the whole family are going to show Gumball what we look like, is a radically different change. Let me be clear, I'm not against doing different things with characters. My problem is that this was not set up enough with Mr. Fitzgerald, leading to this episode feeling out of place and him out of character. Just look at the Hulk from the MCU and how we see many people complain about the radical off-screen character development they did between Infinity War and Endgame, and just how frustrated everyone was about that. And this line of logic and thinking applies to some extent or other with the out-of-character moments I have been pointing out and will continue to point out in this video. The final and most egregious example of is how off Darwin and Gumball feel. There isn't as much banter or disagreements between the two of them. Even their interactions with other characters feel strangely off. We hardly ever see Gumball make snarky remarks about other people, and when they do try to show those aspects of their personality, it's a complete fail. Just take a look at the episode The Fools. This is one of the few times we see Gumball and Darwin have a disagreement, which is nice, and it's about how Gumball is taking his pranks too far, and it's some of the most tame things we've seen from him. Another way they're different is the lack of their jerkish humor, as already mentioned. However, this is a criticism that extends to most, if not all, characters in the show, but obviously applies especially to Gumball and Darwin, as this aspect is almost entirely gone even in Gumball. Just take a look at the episode The Roast. And just for good measure, I'll add a nice Vine boom and a counter in the corner every time he says an awesome roast.
I'm all for organic produce, but whoever grew you picked you last. I've heard of milking a joke, but this is just formulaic. Chlorophyll, more like chlorophyll. You're so square you're doing it in 3 dimensions. Oh, sorry, home slice. Your friend didn't make this cut. You guys look like AI-generated cartoon characters, but without any of the intelligence. The midwife really dropped the ball with you. She should be fired. They don't need to be sour. They're just not a baller. You get the point. Clearly you are a wisdom tooth.
All these roasts are terrible and unimaginative. In previous iterations, the roasts were descriptive and would go in interesting directions.
Oh, Gumball, you look like a raw Thanksgiving turkey brined in garbage juice. It's more like an open casket for a seafood haggis.
Thanks, please just go.
This was a huge part of not only Gumball and Darwin's characters, but as well as the show's personality as a whole. Yet here it's gone entirely. Side note, there is an unsubstantial amount of step sus this season. A little weird. It was at this point when I was considering biting the bullet to finally do rope maxing. But then the most unexpected thing of them all happened. The episodes became good. Season 2, episode 14 starts with Nicole Watterson realizing that Gumball really is sick. Now, you know that clip I played earlier to help showcase my point about the humor the old show has? That wasn't from The Amazing World of Gumball. That's from the new show. Yes, the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. The one we're talking about right now. That one. And it's a moment that got me to immediately raise my eyebrows. It then turns out Anais forgot stuff for school at home, and the rest of the episode is Gumball trying to return it to her. And honestly, it's pretty good. You have more moments of Gumball being snarky, and you have this cool visual near the end where Gumball's desperately trying to go up a flight of stairs, and the episodes after continue this trend of quality. And throughout, it felt like I was watching The Amazing World of Gumball again. Unfortunately, even this section of episodes has some problems, as I wish the ending had a bit more setup instead of basically not talking about the cliffhanger for season 6 or even hinting at it until right at the very end. While I did find it weird initially that the Awesome Store wasn't shown that often for most of the new show, especially when it came to some of the strange things that just happened that could have been very easily explained by the Awesome Store, such as the astrological episode where Mr. Small just has a celestial stone that basically poisons the kids and makes Gumball have these super hallucinations. So I suppose this could be due to them wanting to save the Awesome Store for the ending, but I think it would have been much better to just have the Awesome Store still have some appearances here and there throughout this new show with subtle hints for the ending. As it could have led to a nice "oh" moment at the end, and it would have made the original guy leaving to be replaced by Rolf have more impact and meaning. Ralph. Rod. Ross? Rog. Oh, Rocks. That's not even a man's name! Rob. It's also a bit weird that Gumball and Darwin discussing weird inconsistencies with their world is such a big deal when I'm pretty sure they've done this before. The weirdest part is definitely how sudden the shift was between this batch of episodes and the rest of the new show. I suspect that this might have to do with different people writing this section, perhaps some of the old writers from the original show, but I have no idea. It would explain the Awesome Store suddenly making a comeback right at the end and giving an actual ending to the initial cliffhanger though. Having said all this, I understand how negatively I likely came across for most of this review, especially at the start, and I want to make it clear that this is not an attack on the people who worked on the show. Plenty of talented people with the works I like have made something that I didn't think was very good, and in general, I appreciate the work that was put into the new season even if I didn't like the end product. And as I've already stated, there are things I like about it. Final episodes aside, as you already know, I quite like those episodes. Generally speaking, the animation is well done, and I appreciate the effort to give an episode to Penny and Gumball, as I often wish there were more episodes of the two. And while the voice actors felt a bit off to me at first, by the end they really grew on me. Now, this last second bump in quality doesn't invalidate everything I've said, as unfortunately the final 6 or so episodes of the show aren't good enough for me to even see it as passable. And ultimately, if someone who enjoyed the original show asked me if they should watch these new seasons, the most I could do is to just tell them to watch the final 6 episodes of the show and hope they get closure from it. And it does seem that there will be future seasons of the show, and I will admit there is a fair bit of skepticism that I have towards the ending. However, after seeing the end, I can't help but also admit that I'm quite hopeful for its future seasons. And hopeful for the modern reality of Gumball.